Thank you for your time. It's a post-lunch session. I hope you will enjoy the session on Metaverse. We've got three eminent panelists with me, Rajat, Ankush, and Shaurya. I've been working with them for a while, and each of them bring interesting ideas around Metaverse for us to discuss today. We'll start with a small video, which Rajat has kindly shared with us. It is about the work that Gamitronics is doing in India. Can we play the video, please? Thank you, Rajat, for bringing this video for us. It gives us a small glimpse of what all is happening in India on Metaverse. We thought nothing is happening, but there is, you can see a lot more happening. I'll just give you an anecdotal story. 2 years ago, I bought the Quest 2 headset, and I kept it at home for a few months, was not using it. Then one fine day, my daughter saw it, and she said what it is. I gave it to her. She kind of told her to use it for an hour and return it back to me. But then she got hooked to it. So thereafter, I realized that the power it brings on the younger generation as they start looking at things like this, and the younger generation gets hooked to it faster. So then I started learning about it more, and then I got hooked to the possibilities of what we can do with Metaverse. And here I'm sitting here talking to you about Metaverse. Just very quickly, what we're going to talk about today is how Metaverse can change how we invent, innovate, and imagine, and more importantly, how we live, work, and play. That's what we are going to focus on in today's session. So we got Rajat, Shaurya, and Ankush with us. So essentially, there are a few components of Metaverse that allows us to really call Metaverse a Metaverse. Metaverse is immersive, Metaverse is persistent, Metaverse allows us to be creative. Metaverse, more importantly, is virtual, and virtual could be virtual or virtual could be augmented with reality. Most importantly, Metaverse is 3D, and Metaverse is Web3 enabled, which really makes Metaverse what Metaverse is. The term Metaverse is perhaps what we believe is invented by Facebook or Meta, but essentially in 1992, there was a science fiction film, Snow Crash, where this word came to life, meta and universe, which means Metaverse. So just some history of Metaverse. There was a movie in 1978, Aspen by MIT, which allowed us to go through the city of Aspen in Colorado, which was perhaps the first view of what a virtual reality would look like. And that's where the life around Metaverse started. It never was then known as Metaverse, but it was the start of what we now see as a Metaverse. We have got video games. We've been playing them for ages. We got virtual life, Second Life, almost 20 years old now. I believe many of us in the room would have experienced Second Life. Is anyone has experienced Second Life? Please raise your hands. 2, 3, 4. Hands are rising, about 20 hands now. Thank you. So not a lot, but quite a few of us have experienced Second Life. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through some key questions that are emerging in Metaverse with our panelists today. So Rajat, my first question to you. In its current state, Metaverse, what are the key challenges and opportunity that it presents, specifically for the India, for the country India?
Okay, thanks for your question. And everybody, is like excited about this term. So first of all, the biggest challenge I personally see is that there's so much noise about Metaverse, but the meaningful information is completely lacking. We don't know somebody's journey, what it actually entails to, right, where it leads. If the use cases are built around ISRO and all, most of the people don't even know what does it actually have the conversion? How do we convert? The other things, other issues which we keep facing are about the standardization. There is no standards, Of course, Metaverse Forum is there, and, they're working towards it, but right now there is nothing, So it's a wild west. And that Wild West actually leads to another problem, which is the privacy and the ethical usage of, like, we all know the kind of, issues and harassments and other things what happened, and how to make this a very safe place. Because technically speaking, Metaverse is for the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, because they'll be the first, users. But to make it accessible to them, we need to make it a safe place. And the onus is on us to make it a safe place, to provide a standardization. Of course, the regulatory things and other things are there. But again, Metaverse can stay away from crypto completely if required. Of course, Web3 is the processing engine underneath. But I think, standardization, ethical practices, privacy issues handled well. And the biggest thing is the noise, around it, And finding the right use case for that, which and one problem right now is that everybody is going after brands like because brands are going crazy about the term metaverse, and everybody wants to onboard a lot of brands and stuff. But I think brands will come and thrive if the consumers are there. So metaverses need to be consumer focused, and that I think that's a big, huge challenge. But then again, there are opportunities. Whenever there are these kind of challenges, the advisory kind of an opportunity can happen. It's a metaverse offers you something what regular any other form of traditional media cannot offer, is that things what you do, you're capturing the data, but things what you're not doing also is captured in metaverse, because it's a 360-degree space, right? So the collaboration goes to the next level. The world is actually flat now, and the opportunities are that we can together work with the artists around the globe. We can work with the technicians around the globe and all those kind of things. So I think the metaverse is making the world completely flat, because you're working in 3D spaces and stuff. So I think that's where we are.
I'll just add to this. Thank you, Rajat. Shaurya, from a FLAM perspective, since you are running the only 3D social networking FLAM on Metaverse, what are the challenges that you perceive? You have seen. No, you are not.
Hello. Hello. So thanks, Prashant. I think multiple challenges, but first things first, what the video mentioned very clearly, Metaverse, a lot of noise has been around the whole space, around the world, but essentially it's like as fundamental as 3D internet. So internet in the last 30 years has always been two-dimensional, and Metaverse is like adding the third dimension to the internet, which is like what the real world is, right? So for example, all of us sitting here, we feel that this is a 3D setting, and that's why it's like immersive. It's pretty much immersive than just having a Zoom call or a Google Meet call, right? So I think by definition, fundamentally, Metaverse is just 3D internet. And the moment you talk about 3D internet, it's like it has never been done before, right? So everything that has been happening on internet in the last 30 years was 2D. And now when we talk about Metaverse, it's going to be 3D, which is like super hard. From multiple perspectives, I think the most important perspective is user adoption, because users have been doing everything 2D, and they are exposed to those kinds of hardwares, those kinds of interfaces, those kinds of use cases, creation, consumption, everything has been 2D, right? Now, the moment you want users to shift from 2D to 3D, that requires like use cases which make sense to them, right? So Metaverse adoption, I think, really start with fundamentally strong use cases, which users are excited about, not just companies and people like us, right? It doesn't make sense. So one thing which we realized, internet got massive adoption, not because, obviously these are large companies, Ola, Uber, Swiggy, Flipkart, large companies on internet. Internet got massive adoption not because of these companies. They came much later in the journey. I think internet got massive adoption because of companies like Messenger, Orkut, Facebook, which were completely around content, communication, and communities, right? So I think same thing will happen with the metaverse. The major challenge is user adoption, and that will pick up when we will center all our focus around content creation, communication, and communities, and everything has to be in 3D. That's one, and obviously, a lot of infra has to be developed. So in 3D, when you talk about infra from motion capture to 3D rendering to 3D adaptive streaming, all of those are at pretty nascent stages right now, and you have to solve them for scale to be able to realize metaverse in real.
Thanks, Shaurya. Next question I'll ask to you directly. What are some of the potential applications of the metaverse, and how it might be used in industries such as education, entertainment, and e-commerce?
So when I say that metaverse is fundamentally 3D internet, everything that's happening on the internet will happen on the metaverse, like every use case, whether you talk about e-commerce, education, advertising, gaming, social, everything will happen in the metaverse because it's going to be naturally 100x more immersive. So for example, this is very interesting, and I think all of us can relate to this. Something as simple as a phone call, right? So we used to have an audio call 10 years back, and we were pretty much comfortable, right? But the moment we are on WhatsApp video calls or Zoom calls or Google Meet, which is like a video call, right? So audio to video was like so much more immersive that it's very hard to go back to audio the same way, right? Like it's just more immersive. You just like to have a video call, whether it's like professional or personal, it's just more immersive. So when we go from video to 3D, it's like you will feel that you are more present with your friends or family or mom or girlfriend, whoever it is, right? So I think once we move from video calls to 3D calls, we will never go back to video or audio the same way, right? So this is as simple as a call, right? So every use case on the internet will happen in the metaverse when you talk about use cases. But the starting points which will lead to massive adoptions pretty quick are going to be centered around gaming, social, communication, and content.
Rajat, do you want to add?
Yeah. So since you talked about commerce and of course we all know and the topic itself is metaverse as the 3D internet. So pretty much everything what any Gen Z and Gen Alpha are doing today, they are doing pretty much in the 3D spaces, and that's the extension. So the interesting thing here is, other than all those things what we're doing, is just like, Instagram and all these are having influencers. There are meta influencers. As we are talking, there are a lot of meta influencers, coming up. They are creating their own, NFTs, or they're creating their own presence, felt, and all those things. Performances are happening. The interesting thing about this metaverse and how is it different from everything else is the economy revolves within the metaverse itself. So not just that you actually, you are the meta influencers and you are earning from metaverses. Metaverse gives you enough opportunity to actually utilize that currency within metaverse itself for getting any physical good. We are already working with a couple of e-commerce companies and delivery partners as well. So you earn there and you buy things there itself, and those are actually delivered to your doorstep. We're working with one of the dating company and coffee chain, Cafe Coffee Day. So they have set up their, and the dating company is literally doing all those matchmaking kind of thing. And if they ask for Americano and the cappuccino, those are actually delivered to your doorstep. So this is something which is already happening, and people are watching movies, together. So I think it's all collaboration. So it's just immersive. And again, on top of immersion, it's basically very collaborative. Everything you do is very collaborative here. So that's...
Thanks. Thanks, Rajat. Ankush, do you wish to add?
So for me, fundamentally, what I see is that the internet for tomorrow is changing. The current internet is under pressure due to privacy concerns. I think every user in this room today is going to have some privacy concerns that is happening. And unfortunately or fortunately, what is happening is, when was the last time you heard about a technical disruption, let's say blockchain, metaverse, which generated equal amount of excitement as it generated disappointment, right? So I am coming from the exciting side of it. And for me, when we talk about metaverse, blockchain, I will say one of the key things that tomorrow's internet need is privacy controls and ownership control of data. And we can think about, metaverse already exists, if you really ask me, right? People have been playing 3D games for last few years. So what's new in metaverse? So the moment you club it with Web3 and look at the 3D content, and what Rajat was saying, that it adds on to the ownership clarity, right? So there is clearly data ownership defined. That's where the creator economy comes in, and that's what the metaverse economic model Rajat was talking about. So if you ask me, the real disruptor that is coming into this space is the privacy controls that it automatically provides to its set of users, to its set of economy runners, which in today's Web2 economic models, the creators have no say. I mean, how much ever correct or incorrect it sounds, that's the reality. You do not have any say. If you're a creator, you're pretty much contained into the platform you are tied into. And for me, I think that's the biggest change. And the fundamental of that is clearly defining the ownership, transparency, and tomorrow's internet needs it. We are moving away from, let's say, the sandwich generation like ours, which was analog to digital moving. But you go to any restaurants today, I see kids, parents are able to feed their kids only if there's a mobile phone in front of them. So the kid is growing native digital. There are kids, there's a generation of kids who are coming who probably may not know the name of the bank. They will say, oh, hey, UPI is great. So I just tell me your UPI ID and I just go with it. They don't know whether it's coming from which bank. It's like, I do not know which company provides electricity at my house. So they have become utility companies. So tomorrow's internet is under pressure. I think that's the fundamentals, ethos, Web3 has to drive. Any new tech, whether it's blockchain, metaverse, there is an educate phase and it goes through a massive, massive rejection phase early on in their life. Public cloud went through that, AI went through that, digital went through that. I think blockchain is no different. We are in that educate and rejection phase of blockchain metaverse, but I think the real builders are building right now, and you will see these impacts coming in, and you will see the digital native generation actually demanding this rather than, it's not going to be good to have, it's going to be must to have, in my opinion.
So, Ankush, just since you said blockchain, I would like to ask, how much the use of blockchain, crypto, NFT, digital asset has an impact on growth of metaverse, and where do you see metaverse and blockchain in 5 years' time?
So, metaverse, 3D, immersive, as I said, it exists today. It doesn't need blockchain, right? So where does the blockchain part comes in? And I'm using the word blockchain, no crypto. And I'll come to that later on. So the blockchain inherently gets you the challenges that today's internet facing is around privacy and creating a very transparent creator economy. Blockchain has got inbuilt into that. And that's what I think the core features have to be looked at. Now, when it comes to crypto, crypto is an application built on blockchain. And that's what I said, right? There is equal amount of excitement as disappointment it has generated. Recently, a bit more. But in my mind, we need to look at blockchain. If I have to give an example. So you have a knife in a chef's hand or in a doctor's hand, surgical knife, performs something which is needed by the mankind. And in the wrong person's hand, it commits crime. So what do? You punish the knife or you punish the person behind the knife? Pretty much, do the other way around, right? In blockchain world, what's happening is there's a crypto is an application, and what we're going after blockchain, and that's where all the regulatory challenges and, we hear a lot of noise around that. But I think time is going to tell what the real application usages are. And in my mind, it's transparency and ownership of data. That's going to be the big demand. If our generation is not asking for it, I'm pretty sure the next generation is going to demand it. And that's something that is inbuilt into blockchain. So if today somebody has to build, let's say, a new app, people typically say, which cloud service, which platform, it's sorted. Similarly, if you have to worry about privacy, if you have to worry about transparency, you will think, let's build it on blockchain. And that's the transition I see.
Thanks, Ankush. Shaurya, how do you think the metaverse will impact the way we live, work, and what are the potential implications for society as a whole?
First of all, I'll add on to what Ankush said, and then I'll come to because I really liked his way of thinking about Web3 and blockchain. I think internet was created because of creation got democratized, right? So all the content types on internet, whether it's like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok very recent, right? Video creation got democratized, that's why it took off. So even when you talk about metaverse and when you talk about massive adoption of metaverse, I think creation has to be democratized. So when you talk about creation democratization in 3D, creator economy becomes really big. And then creators have to have ownership of their creation, whether they mint NFTs of their creation or have them on blockchain. But that's going to be a major part because creation itself is a major part of how the metaverse adoption picks up. Getting back to your question, Prashant, I think the whole way we live our life is anyway 3D, right? I mean, very fundamentally, internet was 2D because interfacing was 2D, whether it's like laptops or desktops or smartphones, everything was 2D, right? Two-dimensional, flat, rectangular screens. But the real life is 3D because eyes are by default lens-first interfaces, right? We are on cameras all the time. So I think what will fundamentally drive metaverse and all the use cases is that we will be on camera-first interfaces all the time. Whether we wear those cameras as reality glasses or 3D spatial interfaces on Oculus, or whether those camera-first interfaces are on your smartphones. But by default, everything that you do in the metaverse will be camera-first. So today, or in the last 200 years, 300 years of camera existence, cameras were always perceived as creation devices. So you think about a camera, and then you think about clicking a picture or a video, right? In the metaverse, cameras will not just be creation devices, they will be consumption devices. So you will be using cameras to consume content in the real world all the time. So that will be a major shift.
Thanks, Shaurya. Rajat, do you want to add?
Yeah, since we're talking about the blockchain, and I would just continue where Ankush had left, or he was talking about is that a metaverse without the blockchain layer. I'm not talking about crypto again, but a blockchain layer is an absolutely superficial implementation of metaverse, because metaverse is the place which is going to be the residence of the next generation. And what the big fours are talking about is like in 3 years time people will be spending 4 hours per day inside metaverse, right? So when we are talking about spending 4 hours in metaverse, that means you're doing everything over there, and we are doing everything over there. The biggest thing what you're looking for is the trust. And blockchain is, the transparency and the trust, establishing that. So I think, so I would say that, off the chain metaverses definitely need to, consider coming on the chain, and that's about it.
So just to add this and to make it easier for all of us to use metaverse, what is the role that government and other institutions, Rajat, you believe government and other institutions have to play to shaping up the use of metaverse in India?
Oh, so you're talking to the person actually who was supported by the government. So one of the first 3 months, like when we launched in January, and the third month itself, Telangana government picked us up and did an event. So I think, okay, I'll answer in a different manner. But the thing is that government immediately looked for people who are working in this particular domain and selected us to do the space tech policy launch, framework launch inside a metaverse. So I think any startup or anybody who's doing in metaverse, that them immediately gets pushed, because we are getting validated by the government and getting a push from the government, supported by the government. In fact, we dropped some NFTs also during that time. So again, government supporting that thing. So I love that. But other than that, I think the onus is on us as well, especially the creators, to make it very exciting for the government to consider working on the policies, regulations and stuff, because it's always we keep going to the government and ask them to do the regulations and policies and other things. But right now the thing is that there are not enough use cases to make it even look attractive to the government. But yes, if let's say, the metaverse word is very established. Mark Zuckerberg is, talking about it. The world is talking about it. And there's so much, noise around it that there is some substance to this, because the amount of money which has gone into this already. I don't know how many of you are aware of Neom, the digital twin metaverse is created. Seoul in 2023 is launching the metaverse of the entire city as is. We are working on 2 of the digital twins projects where we are dealing with IoT and a lot of these things. So these are all the government implementation. But what government should be doing at this stage when the whole thing is there, I think they should work towards standardization. For that, they should work with the guys who are working on this technology, work with a lot of regulatory bodies, work with all the, the excise control and financial institutions and stuff, and figure out the standardization processes, have the papers which are there, and at the same time regulate that and support that. I think, that's all, they have to do initially. And then, of course, because metaverse is consistently and constantly evolving, what we are seeing today will not be the metaverse in 2023 or 24. So I think, it's part of the evolution, and I think the government policies, in fact, policy is definitely something which will be very, very important and handy, and, it will give us trust and comfort as the creator to, go ahead and, continue working towards this thing. Because right now, Gametronic's entire revenue stream is just one single metaverse and nothing else. So we are like all in metaverse, and that's when, I think the support from the government is definitely, in terms of policy and regulation, will be really helpful.
Thanks, Rajat. Ankush, do you want to add?
So my take is following, right? So the tech is evolving at an exponential pace. And to be honest, it is unfair of us as builders to expect that the regulators will be able to catch up with the pace of tech innovation. I think it's, to be honest, really unfair. So what we need to do, I think as innovators, we need to say that we are building transparent tech. So that's what I will call, right? So when we are building blockchain, any builders here, I can tell you that, whatever noise we have heard about that, if as builders, while building the innovation, we are building transparency in the tech we are building, we are making the job of the governments easier, and we are also making job of the innovators and the people who are going to adopt easier. So I think the need is, we are talking about blockchain and bringing transparency and all of that. It's important, any tech innovation that we bring in, we build transparency into that. We have talked about transparent AI. I think we need to look at transparency into everything going forward. We'll make the job of innovators and government both simpler this way.
Ankush, I'll just extend this question further to say, from a privacy, safety, security of the metaverse, what all needs to be done, implemented, enforced, especially around encryption, authentication, data privacy, data protection, governance and oversight, specifically, will there be penalties and sanctions brought in the future around this?
So on that part, see, there are certain things which are always going to be regulated, right? If you're thinking we are going to live in a free world where nothing is going to be regulated, I'm not sure whether we are going to survive longer in that world. So we have to accept certain things as technology builders. And if today you ask me, any of the exchanges that we are running, it's very easy to provide transparency, complete transparency into the movements. It's just that it's not done, and that's why we are seeing some of the challenges that we are seeing. Why it's not done is beyond my thought process, but builders should do that. We have seen, even on the data privacy side, right? The cloud data policies of different regions. Europe has GDPR. We are coming up with a data policy. The data cloud came in 2010. We still haven't got those policies right. And now we are talking about getting regulations around crypto right. I think it's not going to happen. So I think we need to step up and make it transparent for the people.
Shaurya, in your world, FLAM, data privacy, especially personal data, PI data, will be a key. So how do you see you protecting on FLAM PI?
Prashant, I'll be very candid over here. Okay, I think we can talk about all the regulations and transparency, all of that, and I think it's fair to talk about it, how government thinks about it, legalities and all of that. But I think these are second-level issues, honestly, and this is a very candid answer. But I worry more about obviously we take care of the user privacy and data privacy all the time. But from the regulation perspective and how the legalities function, that's the second-level problem. We first need 100 million people to really use the real metaverse use cases, create content, consume content, really spend some time on your platform. That's when all these situations become much more critical. And then you handle them on the go even more seriously. But yeah, I mean, more than having to worry about the regulations and how the government thinks about it, you need to worry about how the user thinks about it, user privacy, user data privacy. And then everything else will fall in place as more and more people adopt and get serious about the space.
So Shaurya, what would happen to the existing social network and communities? What is the potential risk and reward for them to move to metaverse?
Potential risk for them?
Potential risk and rewards for participating in metaverse.
So I think if you look at last 20 years, how content has evolved, new platforms have emerged. Every time new content type has emerged, right? So for example, from text-first content on Orkut and Facebook, we really moved to image-first content on Instagram. From there, we moved to video-first content on TikTok. Every time, more immersive content play happened. Text is definitely not as immersive as image. And videos are more immersive than images, right? So whenever we moved from one kind of content to another, immersion increased. And a new platform emerged because of the positioning, because of the way they target users. So I think when we talk about future of content on social, it's going to be everything 3D. And new platforms will emerge. Obviously, existing platforms have a lot of leverage from money perspective, resources, tech, everything. But I think new platforms will emerge, which will be much, much larger.
And the existing ones, existing social networks, they will remain as is, or they will all move to become metaverse like Facebook has?
So I think the efforts are already happening. For example, Meta is full blown. They're just talking about how the 3D content will play in the social setting. TikTok is also spending a lot of time on building creation tools for 3D, which is like the core for adoption of the whole metaverse in 3D, right? Or social on 3D. So all these platforms are already building heavily in that direction. Snap already is talking about spectacles. They are already working on 3D creation tools, which is again the core of creation. So all these platforms are picking up really fast. And let's see, but one of them has to win really big, either the existing ones or the upcoming ones.
Thanks, Shaurya. Rajat, a close question to what I asked you earlier, but what are some of the ethical concerns that need to be addressed while we develop Metaverse? And you've been doing a lot. So what are you specifically taking care of, specifically on the ethical side, as you go about developing it, making it safe and responsible for users?
Yeah, so safety comes in two ways. First of all is all your transactions, all your interactions, all your collaborations, all your doings in the metaverse needs to be transparent and on a trusted platform. So that's something is with of course anybody, and that's one of the reason I keep talking about being on the chain. I think blockchain plays an important role, but the other side is much more concerning, where the harassments and, since it's an open platform where the voice is, there, where virtual reality is there, you can do a lot of gestures and stuff and all those things. And that's, again, something I keep talking to, all the metaverse creators, and there are a lot of groups, and we discuss about it all the time, that instead of constantly building, use cases after use cases, there should be some tools to be made for, providing a safe space, like what Facebook has done. They have created a capsule kind of a thing around your, avatar, so people cannot come in close proximity and do stuff which they should not be doing. We are working on two of the AI. In fact, the previous session was about deep tech, right? And I think, deep tech and metaverse has a very close relationship. And as, Ankush was, and Shaurya was mentioning about, motion capture and other things and stuff like that. So all those tools should be on your phone. And I think there are a lot of companies working towards it. But at the same time, making sure that, what are the things which needs to be audited, censored, and filtered out. So we are working on technology where all your, narration, basically whatever you're saying, in real time gets, censored. So some of the words and other things which are not okay. So we built our own in-house technology for that, and at the same, and we are providing that tool to other metaverse creators also. But at the same time, I know there are other video-related things and content-related. Since the entire metaverse thrives on user-generated content, what kind of content should be approved by default. So I think there are a lot of tools to be made to ensure that that place is a safe place, and not just every single time you need to look for a regulatory body or some kind of thing. There has to be in place AI which should take care of all the things you're doing within that. And I think and that's one of the reason, if you've seen like how Party Night was doing, like 2 months before and now, lately we started focusing a lot on creating these tools. So, we already rolled out where your real-time conversation is filtered. But other things we are working on, like so we have logged the gestures also. So even if we are using VR, not everything you can do, whatever you, because you get your complete hand and stuff. So we're filtering out, but again, that's not something we have, rolled out. So yes, focus on a lot of AI, and I think that's the right use case of AI, since this is where everybody will live. I think we need to provide that thing, and I think AI needs to play a big role there. And other than that, the transactional part and the interaction part are well taken care by blockchain and the trust systems which are in place.
Thanks, Rajat. So one last question, since we have a hall full of entrepreneurs. And you three are the entrepreneurs which is focused on Metaverse specifically. What are the opportunities that the room has, or everyone in the room has, as entrepreneur or innovators in the Metaverse? And request all of you to answer this. We've got about 2 minutes to go. So please, Ankush, do you want to start?
So I think today, a lot of times we are too engrossed in the use cases. We say, what are the Metaverse use cases? Where the use case, I see nobody adopting it, right? So I think, in my opinion, that's not the right way to look at it. What we should look at it, where is the metaverse ecosystem today? and where the tech is going to evolve tomorrow too, right? So I think today the hardware is limited. We do not have the right hardware for doing metaverse, whether it's on the server side or it's too expensive to use, and even the form factors. If I use a Meta Quest, I look like an ugly human being. Even if I'm doing a conference, it's like 5 robots with somebody talking to each other. So if we fast forward to 5 years, right, from now, so I think the glasses would be like the glasses I'm wearing. It's very convenient. It will have a phenomenal battery life. I think then the phenomenal number of use cases to be built. So I think right now is the time that the enabler ecosystem, whether it is hardware, whether it is software, even on the tool side, the tools are very limited that we are using to build metaverse. Ask the builders, it's not easy to build. So today, I think on the enabler ecosystem side, we need to make sure the right hardware is getting built, and also the right software tools are getting built. Even if you look at public cloud, it came in 2010, but it took 5 to 7 years to build the in-between adoption tools, which made it easy for everyone to adopt. Similar thing is happening on the metaverse side, right from hardware to software. Today, the enabler ecosystem has to be built on software and hardware side. Then after that, I think there are a phenomenal number of people who are going to think about use cases which probably we can't think. Example, the moment Apple App Store came in, Android App Store came in, somebody thought about Uber, somebody thought about Zomato, and we see where they are. So use cases, I think we should leave it to the creative people, and the builder should focus on building the necessary elements for making the ecosystem adopted by the creators.
You want to add, Shaurya?
Pretty much on point. I think we are in very early stages of metaverse, and there are multiple layers. I would just add one more thing. Like, there are multiple layers, from infra layers, software infra, to human interface layer, to creator economy layer, to use cases, the application layers. So multiple functions where you can work on. And I think everything is going to make sense, because we're talking about something very fundamental. It's just 3D. Everything is 3D. Everything is more immersive. It's like the real world experiences becoming 100x more interesting. So multiple layers can be developed, as Ankush rightly mentioned, and it's very, very nascent. So everything and anything that you start to work on will create a very large impact. It's like internet 30 years back, literally, right? So it's a complete white space, and a lot of tool chains, a lot of infra has to be developed for the applications to pick up. So I think applications are also required. You need to think about applications today so that user adoption starts to pick up. But infra is like massive opportunity out there.
Rajat, do let some ideas out
Yes,
for others.
absolutely. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware that HTC has released a phone called Desire Pro, and that's a metaverse phone by function. The minute you start the phone, you are in a metaverse. You create your avatar and access everything. So I think you need to be ready for that. One of the electronic giant we all know, they are working on their living room electronic device, and pushing metaverse as the operating system for that. So that's again, which is happening. So I think the users will come, but the thing is that there has to be the, right, again, the balance of infrastructure to support that. Otherwise, it can be a fate like a lot of other things had happened before. But I think this is absolutely, I think the generation is ready, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha. I think 5G is there, which is a big, huge pillar ensuring, the trust system with the blockchain and everything. So I guess, and metaverse right now, and especially talking about India and Indian market, we have around 590 million connected devices and 300 million plus gamers, in India. And no matter what we call it and stuff, but that space, basically the 3D space is like a game, right? And that's where people are living in. So we have the ready audience, which is there. We need to give enough reason for them to stay. They will come and they will leave if we don't provide them a reason to stay. And at the same time, so I think there is something for everybody there. I have created whatever I could, and we are working constantly towards it. But yes, there is definitely, it's a catch-22 situation.
Thank you, Rajat. Thank you, Ankush. Thank you, Shaurya. Thanks for taking time out and coming here to speak with me on this interesting topic. So let's look forward to live, work, and play in Metaverse. Thank you for everyone's time.